Today I wanted to talk to you guys about the topic object permanence. First off, what is it? It's the ability to understand that objects in the space around us, virtual or otherwise, are still there, even when they are out of our view or vision. Cats in particular are kind of bad with this, which is why you'll see them oftentimes be intrigued when you place like a blanket over their favorite toy. Because in their mind, as soon as that veil is placed over their eyes, they're like, what the fuck? How did you do that? And they're intrigued, or at the very least confused, about how you were able to make that object disappear. For them, it is as straightforward as out of sight, out of mind. If this sounds like a super easy and simple concept, that's because it is. This is something that we learn or recognize in infancy. So why am I waffling about this baby topic? And how will this help me win games? Well, although this is a simple concept that most of us are able to grasp and apply in our day-to-day activities, the amount of teammates I see to fail to apply this in game is alarmingly high. So I'm making it my mission to spell it out for everybody out there. Not to talk shit, not to shame anyone or make anyone feel bad, but just to simply, in the case that someone might see this and go, oh hey, I never thought about that, or oh, I learned something new today. So let's dive right into it. How does this apply to in-game? Now, I'm only going to be talking in terms of how it applies to tactical shooters, namely VALORANT and CS2, of course. And while it does apply to like every competitive title out there, in League of Legends and Dota, there's a term where people call missing, or MIA, from their lanes, so that teammates in the other lanes can prepare themselves for a possible attack from the missing enemy. But it goes something like this. As soon as you spawn into a new round, you have to recognize that there are 5 threats somewhere on the map. Through your experience and educated guesses, you'll be mapping out where the threats are and how many at each certain locations are throughout the map. The longer a round timer draws out, it'll be harder to pinpoint exactly where these threats could be coming from, as there are a lot of moving pieces and a lot of things happening. But you should be doing your best to keep track of everyone throughout the round, even if you cannot see them physically in front of you. And this is what a lot of people would probably refer to as game sense. For example, if you're playing on B site on some map, and the enemy team is making a lot of noise at bomb site A, should you go over to help as soon as your teammates have made contact? And if you do, which route do you take? Do you flank them quickly? Do you rotate safely through spawn? Do you rotate through middle, even though it's not as safe but is faster? Well, to be able to determine your best course of action, you want to have as much information on where all the possible threats are at that moment in time. So unless all 5 are spotted and rushing out, your options are not as easy at first glance. If you rotate too early and leave your site empty, and they were only making noise but not rushing, then you played right into their fake and you left an empty site. If you rotate mid or flank them without all 5 spotted, you have to be scared of every single corner of the map, or risk getting killed by someone hiding, waiting for someone just like you to run through. In these 5v5 games, every player has the potential to be super impactful. It's what makes these games super exciting and rewarding, and sometimes frustrating, to play and to watch. That at any moment, things can be flipped completely on its head and swing the other way. Now with that in mind, you gotta know that you are important. You matter. Everyone is vital for the team's success, or for the win. Once you die, your impact for the round is finished. But sometimes people can take this notion a little too far by playing too safe, or scared even, that their impact becomes near zero as if they were dead. To my point, I'll try to make a simple hypothetical. Let's say teammate A is holding an area. But what good is that coverage going to be if they're just hiding in the corner? Most would agree that that's kind of like being a glorified tripwire. Your line of sight, along with everyone else on the team, is super crucial to what kind of information can be gathered, so that we can know what our next best move is going to be in that current situation. If all 5 members of the defending side are all hiding in a corner and nobody's watching anything, again, out of sight, out of mind, no one has any idea what is happening on the map, and we're just giving up the entire map for the enemy to roam free and set up for executes or engagements that are favorable for them. The point of spotting them is so we can have a heads up before it gets to that point, and we can try to fight back or adjust our setup accordingly. Sometimes you may have situations where if you're low HP and you don't want to throw away a numbers advantage, then yeah, you may want to be hiding and playing defensively, waiting for them to make the move. But that's only once you've gained some kind of upper hand and forcing the enemy to make a move. The reason this wouldn't work at the very start of the round, for most cases, is that it's basically a blind gamble. Like in this game, technically anything can work, but ideally we don't want to give them all that freedom for free. We want to make them uncomfortable. We want to make them scared or force them to clear things with utility, which can in turn kind of telegraph what their play is going to be. Also, if you're giving up your line of sight, think about how hard it is to track where the enemies will be moving, because everywhere on the map will be dark for your team. When you die, that area will immediately go dark for your team, and that map control is lost. Hence why even one kill can be the swinging moment to turn the tides of a round and potentially the match. Bottom line, you never want to give up anything to the enemy for free. You, at the very least, want to make it difficult for them, make them uncomfortable, or make them scared instead of being scared ourselves. Another good way to get your game sense up is to be using your minimap. Seriously, use your minimap often and a lot. Obviously, your eyes shouldn't be glued to the minimap because you gotta pay attention to what's in front of you, but anytime that new information provides itself, take a quick glance at the minimap so that you can store it in your head and use it for the rest of the round. It's a good way to get a lot of spam kills as well. But anyway, anytime and every time an enemy is spotted on the radar, you need to remember where they are spotted, how many there were in that area, and quickly realize all the potential spots that they can move from there and where the rest of their team can potentially be. Now, how do you do this and make educated guesses quickly? Well, to put it quite simply, you just look at all the dark spots that your team does not have control over and equate it to that. Anywhere you don't have full control over, and more importantly vision or lines of sight, you will basically have to assume that they can, and most times likely will, be there. This is why, again, establishing that map control early on is pretty important because it's going to influence how the rest of the round is going to be played out. Teams can, in theory, check and clear every nook and cranny and systematically take parts of the map until they eventually finally reach the bomb site, plant, and defend it until they win. So, every time someone is spotted on the map, we need to make a mental note of who, how many, and where, and all their possible moves from that point. The more control we have, the lesser their options are going to be, and it's even easier to keep tabs on them. Conversely, the less control that we have, their options are far greater, and that's when we're going to get caught with our pants down. You don't have to be a savant to know that having wall hacks are extremely beneficial for your team. So while you can't, or at the very least shouldn't straight up be cheating, if you get good at keeping tabs on where your enemy's whereabouts or possible routes are, it's practically like playing with wall hacks, and will definitely lead to enemy frustration, as nothing they do will seem to work against you guys. So all that stuff is good and well on a macro level, but what about on a micro level, like for 1v1s and stuff? So real quick, I wanted to go over two more hypothetical scenarios that are pretty common. Let's say you're in a 1v1 with someone and they're hiding behind a box or like a pillar, and you got to do a little bit of ring around the rosy with them. There's a lot of times where people would see someone, like as soon as they hide behind the cover, they're gonna just pre-aim the other side of the box. But you shouldn't be immediately aiming at the other side because it takes time for them to travel there. If they're doing it silently, in other words walking, then it's gonna take more time than if they were running. If they were running, you got the sound cue so you know to look over there. Fine. But if they're silent and in that split second you don't know if they're gonna come from the left or the right, just hold the original spot, and then after like half a second passes, then you know that they can be, or likely will be, on the other side. At the same time, you should also commit to one side most of the time and then make your own advance. Most scenarios, remember nothing's absolute in this game, but most scenarios you don't want to be standing still just waiting for them to make the move on you, because as you're advancing, you're going to throw off their crosshair placement and you're going to be able to get the drop on them. But you should be making your advance silently, because if you're just storming up there, they can just hear your footsteps all day long and they can just avoid you all day long. Remember, give nothing for free, not even information. Now for the second scenario. You're in another 1v1. Let's say you're in CT spawn, you just killed one enemy, and the last guy just killed your teammate on stairs. So both of you know where each other are. So you're focused on stairs and the enemy's focused on CT spawn. Instead of swinging out into him right away, try considering doing something like this instead. Start backtracking towards window room, because this way you accomplish a lot of things at the same time. You're covering your flank, you're gathering info, but most importantly, you're cutting off a lot of their options that they can possibly do. As soon as he taps the bomb or plants the bomb, you're gonna know exactly where he is on A site. And this whole time, his attention is mainly going to be focused on CT. Now, timing and stuff is very important, because the longer you take, then the likelihood of them getting wise to the fact is going to be higher. But just look at all the ground that you cover compared to if you were just sitting in CT spawn waiting for the fight to happen. So that's all for this one, and remember, just because you can't see them doesn't mean you can't have a good idea of where they are. Now, if you're smarter than an infant, like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe for more words of wisdom in the future. Thanks for watching.
None may challenge me. I'm blind, not
yeah,
deaf.
new
I
patch
grow
made-
in
What the fuck?